first topic would be Spring module. Okay, so we'll go with Spring module. Before learning Spring, we should know the basic of Spring Boot and Spring is different. They are slightly different. You should first know Spring. Then you can go with Spring Boot. So we'll know what it is. Okay. So before starting with Spring model, there are a few concepts you should be knowing. So we'll go with application development. So in application development, whenever you want to create an application. So as I told you, um, this is an application. So if you want to create this application, you need two things. That is front end and next is back end. Okay. So what is front end? See, whatever you see here, whatever is visible to you, only what is visible to you is Angular, HTML, CSS, whatever they have used in front end, only that is visible. These buttons and everything. So this is called front end. The look and feel is called front end. More technical term, presentation layer. Okay. And back end is, it includes web service calls, validations, business logics, database communications. So all these things, them there'll be other things as well. So this comes under backend. So whenever you go for a job, you would have heard, right? We need front end developers, we need backend developers, like that. So that's the difference. So front end, presentation layer, whatever you can see, backend, whenever you click something, some operation happens, some transition happens. So that is called backend. Whatever happens, backend. This is not visible. This is visible to the user. So both together, front end plus backend. Front end plus backend. That is called as full stack development. Okay, front end plus backend is called full stack development. So right now the trend is the companies are requiring full stack developers who can do front end and back end as well. Okay, and the wages, the salary for them also is pretty good when it comes to full stack compared to front end or back end developers. Full stack have a good salary package and good opportunities as well. And the job security also, when it comes to full stack developers, they'll be having considerable job security in IT. Okay, so that's about it. And here, we call Spring or Spring Boot as frameworks. Okay, so today we are going to see about Spring framework. Okay, what's the meaning of framework actually? Any idea? So here, usually people have two questions. Okay, you have to be clear with that before learning all the concepts. So even in previous classes, I've told you have to be clear on why you are learning. So here I have two questions. So what is a programming language? Okay, and next is what's a framework? This is the question. Any answer? So you know Java. So you know Java, and you could have learned Java, Python. There are many languages. You would have learned it. Programming language. So let's put it simple. So so you should always remember. Okay. So I'll give you a presentation of it. Where is it? So yeah. So this is actually a programming language. So if I'm talking to you in English, so you're understanding me. I say hi, you will say hello, whatever it is. So that's a language we used to communicate with other people. So how will you communicate with a computer? So computer can only understands binary code. So you have to speak in binary code. Only then it will give you a reply. In that too in binary code only it will give you a reply. So that is a programming language. Okay. So here how we have English like that, the same thing. To communicate with computer, the people have developed certain languages. That's a binary language. Even Java, when you write a Java, so after the compilation, the runtime, it will convert your code into byte code and the computer executes it. And then it will give you answer in binary only, byte code. And again, the Java platform will translate it and give it to you, such that you can at least read what it's saying. So that is called a language. Okay. That is a programming language. Understood? So as you said, it is a set of instruction. It's mostly a communication with computer, and it's also a set of instructions. Understood? Okay. So coming to framework, why do we require a framework? Like Hibernate is a framework, Struts is a framework, Spring Boot, they are frameworks. Why do we require this framework? See, if you can develop an application without framework, you can do it with just Java. You can develop an application, but how does it look? So this is how it looks without framework. Application development without framework. So let's say take we have multiple companies like TCS, IBM, Infosys. So they every of the company they want to develop an application of different. TCS wants to develop an application of passport related things. They want to develop application on weather forecast. Infosys wants to develop application on train bookings, and another company on airlines. So that's how the present market is working, right? Each company is developing their own set of applications. So if they want to develop these applications, see this is passport related thing, this is weather forecast, this is trains, and this is flights. If they want to develop this kind of application, they all have different kinds of application. But you see, these are very common. The database connections, they have to do no matter what. Object creation should be done. Validations, like whenever you type a password, sometimes it says it's not correct, right? You have entered an incorrect password, enter it right. So those are validations. Or sometimes it is like invalid emails. You should have seen those kind of errors, like that warning signs. So that's called validation. So validations, data capture, and sometimes once you book tickets, right, it will send you an email saying that your ticket is booked. So email sending and security, these are all common features. If you see, these are all common. If you want to develop an application, you have to develop this one as well. But these are everything is common in whatever application. All these are common. So what they did? So people came up with a solution, Spring Framework. So Spring Framework will help you create all these things. And so this will be there. So now what companies can do, they can just use the Spring Framework. On top of that, they can create their own applications. All these are unique application, they can create their own applications. So basically, framework will provide you some code logics, such that you can do that work. So it will reduce some of your work actually. So you don't have to do 100% of your work. Some 70%, at least 30% it will do, and 70% you have to do. So all these common headaches, right? It will remove that. So that is why we have using Spring Framework. Understood so far? So programming language, you can say it is a communication with a computer and set of instruction. And framework, can I say it as a semi-developed software? Okay, framework is a semi-developed software. So now you have an overview of where the Spring is exactly they are using, for what purpose they are using. This is a practical approach, guys. Practically, this is how they use it. So coming to a Spring module. So what is a Spring module? Okay. So this one I will share it with you. Um, yeah. One more thing you need to know before going to Spring module is architecture. So as I said, this is the front end. So front end, this is what we will be having: HTML, JavaScript, etc. on backend, and DB. So this is how the entire application will be segregated: front end, backend, DB. So you're clear of which comes where. So I'm stressing this again and again is because once you know the architecture visually, you are clear with what you're doing. It is easy for you to learn. You should be knowing why you are learning it, where you're going to use it, right? You should know that. So even one line of Java code you're writing, you should be knowing why you're doing it. So that's why. And so uh, architecture. So we will be developing a small architectures in future classes. So you'll have more idea on it. So before microservices came, there was mostly monolith architecture. So now everything is microservices. I will tell you what is a monolith and microservices. Okay. See, this is a monolith architecture. So monolith architecture in the sense, what happens is, let's again go back to that. You have so many functionalities. When you look at this page, Prime Videos, you have this one, sign in, and this is all more movies, TV shows, rent. See, these are all, it is called functionality. Each one is a functionality. E- e- Functionality in the sense, when you click on it, it performs a job. Here, when you click on it, it performs a job. Something happens, right? If we click on off TV show, something happens. So this is a functionality. Monolith, what they did is, um, they created everything in a single application. Everything, every of it. Let's say they are around 20. I see there's more than 20, right? Let's say 30 functionalities they want. So let's take what is this? A streaming platform, right? When you take an example of a streaming platform, what functionalities you'll be having? One is sign in and languages, TV shows, movies. These are the basic functionalities. Few. So what they did monolith architecture is everything they put under only one project structure. If you create a project in Java, you would have created a project and everything they put under same project, one single project. Okay, that is a monolith architecture. Everything together. So What was the main disadvantage in monolith architecture in the sense, let's say something happened to movies. There was some error in movie section. While coding, somebody did some mistake in movie section. What happens? Everything will be down. Everything, the entire platform will be down. Okay. So that is the main disadvantage in monolith architecture. So for that is the main reason they went with microservices. So how microservices works is, see, UI or whatever you're seeing is a UI here. Everything is a different. Each one became one project. So what in microservices they did is, this is one API. This is one more API. This API and this is an entirely different project. This is another separate API and this is a separate API. Everything is separated. And how it happens is, they implemented gateways, and how once you click on all, that all API will be clicked on. Once you click on movies API will be called. Once TV shows API will be called. In this case, even one is down, let's say movie is down, still TV shows will work. Even if language is down, something else would work. Okay, so your application will not be entirely down, only that functionality will not work, other everything will still be working. So that is the advantage, and it is much more efficient when it comes to monolith architecture. So it was a huge application, monolith. So deployment was difficult. Like if one mistake, let's say if one mistake, entire project was down. And one more is, deployment was huge. So it's a quite big application, one whole application. So the deployment was very complicated. Microservices, you can deploy. It is all a single application. It's all small applications. So deployment was much more easier. So all these drawbacks was solved by microservices. Understood? So coming to Spring model. So I will tell you what is a Spring model. So every application. So you want to develop an application now. So there is a user, and user interface is something on clicking. You click on whatever, this one. If I click on sign in, that's an interface. So user clicks on that sign in, and the next what happens is, in web layer it is controllers. All this transition happens right one page to another page. That is web layer controllers. And from controllers it will go to business layer. That means all your Java code will be here. Okay. Persistence, all your Java code is right here. And your persistence layer. Hibernate is a very good example of persistence layer. What happens is database communication. It creates the database communication to you, and then you add it to database. So this is how an entire application works. Got it? Just make note of it. User interface, web layers, business layers, everything. So previously we had structs. What structs was doing is, it was giving you like, it's a framework. Everything is a framework. I told you, right? Framework is a semi-developed software. So there were few codes in structs which allowed us for navigation. It only allowed for navigation, nothing else. Structs for navigations. Okay, from front end it will take you over the request and it will give it to the next layer. So that is navigation. So structs was only used in web layer. Only web layer, nothing else would come. So if you want this persistence layer, what to do? For that, we had Hibernate. Okay, Hibernate for. Okay. So Hibernate, what it does is, in JDBC, every time you have to open a connection. So you have to open a connection, JDBC, and then each and every time that object will be created. Hibernate, what it was doing is, once it was creating a connection, it will fetch data from the DB and it will be having it in persistence layer. It will not go to database every time. If the data is available in persistence layer, it will tell you, I already have the data. I've already seen the database. I have the data. Here it is. That's how Hibernate was working. JDBC didn't know what is there in database. It will go create a connection and then get it to you. So creating connection is something time consuming, and performance wise it is a error. Like performance wise it brings down the application. So that was the advantage of Hibernate. So Hibernate, once it goes, looks into table, it remembers. That is called persistence. It remembers what is there in database, and it doesn't go to database unless it doesn't know. So that was uh, the advantage of Hibernate. Okay. So Hibernate is persistence layer. So if you want to develop an application, before what they were using Struts as Hibernate. Okay, both they were using and then creating the application. Spring came as an upgrade. Spring ORM. Spring ORM. It means it already had inbuilt code for database. Okay, it already had that persistence layer. So what happened is in Spring Hibernate, in Spring ORM, Hibernate was already included. So that is what happened. And Struts was getting included. And Spring has more inbuilt softwares. Okay. Spring, let's not go into ORM now. So Spring had the persistence layer, control layer, and it had annotations for business logic as well. Few business logic it had. Few. So you see the advantage of why we are going with Spring. If we use Struts, we have to go with Hibernate. But if you use Spring, Spring covers everything. So Spring covers the entire Spring can be used. Okay, it can be used in controllers, it can be used in business layers. Spring has code related to persistence layers as well. So all the inbuilt features, I would not say all, but most of your softwares or existing codes were there in Spring. So that is why we are going with Spring. Understood? And I will tell you a few examples as well. So when it comes to web layer, controllers are web layer. Spring has some few annotations. So what they developed is for using the inbuilt softwares. Okay, I told you right, semi-developed software. To use that semi-developed software, is already they have that code for it. They have that inbuilt code. You're going to use it. So to use that, they developed annotations. When it few annotations I can say when it comes to web layer, the controller parts. It may go over your head right now. Just try to grab it. If you in next classes, you'll understand it. When it comes to the web layer, it had annotations like controller, like that. And when it came to business logic, it had annotation like at the rate component or at the rate service. And when it comes to persistence layer, it had annotation like at the rate repository or at the rate cacheable, like that. These are few, I'm telling you. So using these controllers, you can invoke the existing code logics. You don't have to again write a tedious Java codes. Okay, your Java code will become like I told you, like solid principles, right? It would Spring would also help you to maintain the solid principles and the architectures as well. So that is about Spring. So this is about Spring. Now you know why the Spring was built and what is the use of Spring and what is the difference between programming language and a framework. So next we'll start with Spring Boot. In next class we'll go with Spring Boot. I'll show you a practical example. Okay. So before that, I would request you all like you have to install Java 8 version. So above 8. Okay. Right now, every all the companies, right, they have asking you what are the features of Java 8 and the higher versions they are going to use. So I hope you have installed Java 8 and you have Eclipse. So we'll mostly go with Spring Boot, and I will tell you like there are a few ways. You can either go with a difficult way of creating a Spring Boot, but there are pretty much simple ways like to create a Spring Boot application than you want.